Welcome to the Artist Advocate. I'm your host, Althea Rene, and this is where we talk about all things music related. Today we have veteran radio personality Pat Prescott, host of 88.3 WBGO Radio. Welcome.
Good to see you, Miss Althea, as always.
Oh man,
I love your neon sign. I'm feeling that. I think I gotta get one of those.
Thank you so much. You know, it's just been, I've been such a fan of yours for so many years, and you've done so much for the community, you know, the musical community. And so I think I'm such a fan. And
well, that goes both ways, you know. I think you kind of know that. You know, this is the appeal to me for radio has always been music. I mean, it was always about the music. And you've been doing such a great job in that arena. I cannot tell you how proud I am of the work you're doing. You know, and people need to really lean in and listen a little bit to Althea Rene. You got it going on. I like it.
It's been a long time. So maybe you could, you know, it's like, you know people, or you think you know them, but you never really get into like how you got started and, you know, from the other side of it, because you're always the one doing the interviewing. And so, you know, if you could just tell us a little bit about how you got started in the business.
Sure. I mean, that's one of the things I love too about podcasting, the fact that you actually get into some of these stories. It's a lot more than just a surface, you know, look at things. But I was initially, you know, when I went to college, I majored in English and secondary ed because I always wanted to be a teacher. And that was what I did when I got out of school. I taught middle school. I was living in New Orleans, Louisiana. I'd gone there because when I was in college, my boyfriend was from New Orleans. So
okay, made
sense at the moment. But it turned out to be the place where I really found my true calling in life. And I was going to some summer classes one summer, working on my master's degree, and I met a young lady who was coordinating hostesses for the NATRA convention, which was the Black Radio Announcers Organization. And so they were all coming to town. The biggest African-American radio personalities from across the country were all there. And I was a hostess. You know, we had to meet people at the airport and be at receptions and stuff like that. And so for that week that they were having that convention, I got a real good up-close look at the radio industry. Now, mind you, I've always been somebody who loved music. My dad was a music lover. He had thousands of albums. Really loved everything from jazz to classical to, he had Charlie Pride records. I mean, we had some of everything. We had the little girl singers. You know, Daddy was really into music, and I always loved it. Had a great record collection. When I was in college, I was very often the DJ. We had parties because I had the most records. And so, you know, the love of music was already there. Once I got exposed to the radio industry, I was like, you know, if these are the top radio personalities in the country, I bet I could do this.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't know anything, which was kind of interesting because I went to Northwestern University, which has one of the best radio, TV, and film schools in the country, but I was not into that. I never even went to the building. So realizing I knew nothing about radio, I went and found a broadcasting school. I enrolled, and it was a 6-month course. I had to go 5 nights a week, 3 hours a night. A lot of people thought I was crazy. What are you doing that for? My mother says, "You've got a great job." Yeah, teaching school. Making less than $10,000 a year. This was back in the 70s, you know. But so anyway, I went to the broadcasting school, got really lucky, met someone there who introduced me to a program director in New Orleans who at WYLD FM, Anthony Wilson was his name. And Anthony offered me a part-time job, which led to a full-time job. When they offered me the full-time job about a year later, I took a sabbatical leave from teaching to try it because I wasn't going to leave my secure job in education.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and that was 48 years ago.
Wow.
And I really need to call and check on my teacher's retirement money. They should have something for me.
Yeah, check the money.
But yeah, that's how it started for me.
Wow. So what are some of the challenges that you've encountered as a radio host, and have any of those been because you were a woman?
I came into radio at a time when women were starting to get hired. They initially, it was all just like everything else in the world. It was a all male bastion. I mean, it was men. They would hire a woman to work nights because the whole philosophy was that we were the sexy ones and we could do that whole nighttime thing. And then they also started hiring women for middays, because that was during the office hours, and people listening in the office, you wanted to be mellow and laid back. But men really ruled the two prime day parts in radio, which was morning drive and afternoon drive.
Oh.
And so when I started out in radio, I was working on weekends, and then I did do middays. Though most of my career I have been a morning show host. And so that was a great achievement for me to be able to, to do the morning show, which is very often the highest rated shows on a lot of stations. They are the shows that charge the most for advertising time. And your morning show really is the anchor of your radio station. So it was quite an honor for me to be able to do that. But I mean, I think the challenges that I encountered didn't have as much to do with being a woman, though there were some. I think that the bigger challenge in radio is just that it's like professional sports. There's a lot of very talented athletes, but only about 5% of them are going to be able to move on to the big leagues. And so, that in and of itself is an issue. There are a lot of people who would love to do what I did for a living, and it's just not that many spots. And so it's very, very competitive, and there can be a lot of backbiting and a lot of fighting for position. But I think that competitive thing exists in a lot of arenas, especially when you're talking about jobs that are attractive in terms of the perks that are involved. It's a fun job to play music on the radio and talk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so who wouldn't want to do that if you can?
I think you probably would have to be a fast on your feet, in terms of being able to, have a pleasing voice and just, I think you would have to be engaging.
Yeah, all of that, all of that. But there are a lot of people who could bring those skills to the table, but that doesn't mean you'll necessarily get a job. And I feel like I've been very fortunate. I've been in the right place at the right time in a lot of instances. I think the fact that I was in New Orleans, if I had gone home to New York, where I lived, before I went to college, it would have been much more difficult. But as it turns out, I was able to catch the attention of some people in New York once I had been on the air in New Orleans for a little while, and I got an offer to come back home to go to New York, which I did, back in the late 70s.
So what makes the difference between a good radio personality and a great radio personality? Because you often wonder, when you think of people that, really rise to the point of, like yourself, where you get this name that, when people, say your name, it's like, while you may say another, radio host name and you're like, who's that?
Well, longevity is a very good thing in radio. And when you can last for a while, I think that there's a lot that goes along with that, that name recognition, as you said, once people get to know who you are and that whole thing. So lasting for a long time helps. If you can stay in there, that's going to add to your cachet. But I think that what makes a difference between a good radio person and a great radio personality is being able to relate to people. It's funny, Althea, because I think that is like critical for anything. I mean, even for what you're doing. You can play, but if you're a jerk,
Yeah.
people are not going to like you. They're not going to want to hire you. Other artists are not going to want to play with you.
Yeah. That's true.
So I think that having a warm and welcoming personality certainly helps. And I think that as far as radio is concerned, I think making yourself available to your community, to your public, I think that is also very important. And being able to, because your job is talking, I think that being able to listen is also a really important thing. Like whenever I meet fans, I try very hard to listen. I mean, to give them my full attention. I've always felt like, and you probably feel the same way, because fans mean everything, when you're a musician.
And they're excited too.
Yeah. I've always felt like I would be nothing without these people.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nobody more important than a fan.
That's so true.
And they get my full attention. If they want to talk to me, I'm going to look them right in the eye and I'm going to listen.
Yeah.
What they're saying and say thank you. Take advantage of that opportunity to say thank you. They have a lot of choices, a lot of different radio stations you can listen to.
Yeah.
A lot of personalities you can listen to on the same station. A lot of musicians that you could like.
Yeah.
But do you feel a connection with someone? And I think the connection makes a difference.
Well, it seems like lately on radio, you no longer can call in and request songs anymore. How long has that been going on? Where
I want to say for about 30 years. The days when you could just call in.
Telling my age, that's for sure.
Let me just say, it was before you started your career.
Wow.
I think that's it's some of the mom and pop stations that we used to have before everything got so consolidated.
Yeah.
That there was that kind of freedom. But I'm telling you, man, for me, this is my 48th year. I will say that for the first 3 or 4 years, I was in situations where I was able to have some kind of input in the programming, and maybe a little bit beyond that. When I first went to New York to WRVR, which was a legendary jazz station in the New York metropolitan area, and we did have some degree of freedom, but from that point on, I would say everything was really computerized, programmed, research heavily involved in it. And I think research and all of that structure really took a lot of the heart and soul out of radio.
But is there any kind of a number or email where people can still get their opinions about songs or things that they want to hear? There's nothing?
Yeah, I mean, people, I think always you need to write letters, send emails, send a note to the program director. They're the ones who really are in charge of deciding what's going to be played on air. And there are programmers who do care about that, and they do market research. They do these research groups where they put a bunch of people in a room and they will play snippets of songs, and you have a little handheld device. If you like it, you push it to the right. If you don't like it, you push it to the left or whatever. And they will use some of that data to help determine what they're going to play. But to me, music has always been, it's a spiritual thing. It's not something that it's not quantitative like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that some of the best radio that has ever been created, when you have people like Frankie Crocker, visionaries and I worked for Frankie, who was an amazing programmer, really just had concepts that all were based on what music sounds like. There was a time when DJs were tastemakers. Like we would listen to all the stuff and we'd say, this is what we really love. And, you play the songs you really love. But pretty much we play whatever is programmed on that computer. They tell you exactly what to play.
So, and I know I'm going off script a little bit, but, I am the artist advocate. So, as an artist, it's kind of like, when you're writing music, a part of us, you don't want to necessarily write music that you think radio will play, because it's you don't know. You write something that you think radio will play, as opposed to music that moves your soul, And then if you do music that moves your soul, then you feel like, now they don't like it. So, I don't know. Whether you split the difference, do something that you...
Yeah, I think that's kind of what you do. I think that's the real value of doing album projects, because you can do a couple songs for them and a couple songs for me.
Yeah, that's
you know what I mean? And I think that I think being an artist probably is a really hard thing, because your creative energy, first of all, that is a gift from God. If you can play at all, and if you can write songs, if you hear melodies in your head, and can translate them to your instrument, wow, that's a magical kind of thing. But you get what comes to you, and that's a spiritual thing. And then you create this music and you lay it out there, and for critics to just jump all over it.
It was all right.
That's got to be really, really tough, because this is the product of, like I said, your heart, your spirit. You put your dreams out there on the table for people to jump on them, you know. But I think you all have a very, very difficult job in that, because it's also, if it's your career, you have to make it make sense. You have to make money off of this. You need people to, I was going to say buy your records, but since that's like almost disappeared, it looks to me that to be an artist today, and you could speak to this, if you can't play live and entertain people, you're not going to have much of a career.
Because the playing live draws people to want to buy your CDs. And I've done, I've had CDs, and then I did the USB, that I've offered, and a lot of my fans will say, I want the CD. And I'm thinking, well, a lot of people say, I don't have a CD player, but they say, we want the CD because it's a momentum, so we want you to sign it, and we just keep it, Yeah,
well, I want to see what's going to happen with that, though, because I think that these people that you're talking about are like me, and it's been an issue for a long time in the jazz music community. The idea, are we aging out? I mean, is everybody going to die? And then we've got all these people. If you talk to anybody who's under 40, most of them have never bought a record or a CD in their life. They're starting now to get attracted to vinyl, because everything old is new again, as always.
Mm-hmm. But vinyl is so expensive.
Vinyl was, but we spent a whole lot of money on vinyl, and I don't regret any of it. But now that we have digital music, which is convenient. Though I do miss I miss the albums. I miss the album art. I miss being able to see what this person looks like in a big picture that's right there in front of you.
See, I'm trying to remember when I've ever bought an album. And that's seriously, I come from the CD era.
That's right. You come from the CD era. Right. And the CDs were great, but, then it's so small, and there's all the print is like tiny, and, you can hardly see.
Yeah, my dad he had a bunch of albums. So I do remember it, but me going to the store buying albums, I never owned
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, then the biggest complaint that I hear very often from artists is that now in the digital age, that even though, it makes it easier to download the music, or, you hear something, you like it, you get it right away. You can just download it right at that moment. But what it means is a lot less money for the artist, because the streaming services, if you got Spotify, Apple Music, that's great. I'm paying, and I have both. I'm like $12 a month or something like that. 12, 14, I think it might be for premium. But still, the artists are getting pennies on the dollar. I mean, what you get paid, you can speak to that. Sheila E. was telling me that how many downloads you have to have before you get $10.
It's just ridiculous.
It's crazy compared to what it used to be, certainly, because artists used to get paid on the sales of their recordings.
Yeah.
Artists used to get paid for radio airplay, which is a lot less significant now because radio playlists are so much tighter. And a lot of, as I said before, people under 40, they don't even listen to the radio.
Yeah. And there's just this kind of passive kind of feeling about music altogether and songs, whereas you used to look at a project and you read out, you cared who played on it. And, and you looked at the artist and there was this mystique, and now there just isn't. You do a project and they're like, when is your next one coming out? And you're like, what? Yeah.
It's not an easy business. It really is not. And I admire those of you who have made it work, someone like yourself I know your story, as someone who, had a real regular job but had musical talent and wanted to do that, but also had a lot of the responsibilities that adults have with the family and all of that, without it's one thing like when you're in college and your parents are still paying for everything and you say, I want to be a musician, and mom and dad will help you. You don't have kids you have to worry about. You can go live with a roommate, or, you can go back home and live or whatever. There's a big difference between someone who has responsibilities and has a lot going on. And what you've done with your career, to me, is wonderful. And I think that your success is really based largely on the talent that you have and the perseverance that you've had to hang in there and you've worked very, very hard.
And I feel like I've been the underdog for, most of my career, and you just can't complain about it. You just have to love it. And I would do it if I didn't make a dime, because I just love the music, that much. But I guess, what would you say that was your greatest disappointment in your career that you want to speak about? Because I know we both have had many disappointments.
I've had such a great career. I mean, I have a lot more to be thankful for than I have to be regretful about. Mm-hmm. I worked 23 years in New York, market number 1, 22 years in Los Angeles, market number 2, and 4 years in New Orleans, which is just one of the coolest places on the planet to live. I've worked in 3 amazing markets, have had great success. But I do think that the fact that I had a regular job before I started doing this, I think that I appreciate I appreciate the environment that radio, the music business in general has given me to have a career that's kind of fun. Though there is hard work involved also, just as like what we're talking about with what you do. But still, I think I appreciate this job. Like I see a lot of people who have been in radio the whole time, and they are whiners and complainers and prima donnas. Yeah. And I just want to go shake them and say, you make a living playing records and talking to people.
Yeah, right.
Say
right.
Thank you, God.
And that's what I feel the same way, man. It's just, you get to entertain, you get to see beautiful people and have the ability to put smiles on faces, and you do the same thing through playing music and soothing. This is the business that we're in, of making people feel good.
Yeah. And I think I've had some disappointments, but I think that the kind of person that I am, and I got this from my parents really, is that I'm pretty resilient, and I don't let things bother me. Really, I have more of a tendency to live in a space of gratitude, and I do have a lot to be thankful for. Starting with those parents, my parents were amazing, really amazing.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So, where are your people from?
I grew up in Hampton, Virginia. You know, my mom was from Savannah, Georgia. My dad was from Hampton. They met at Hampton University, which was Hampton Institute at the time.
Oh, wow.
And so that's where I grew up. My mom was worked in nuclear medicine at the VA, and my dad was a boys club director back before it was Boys and Girls. It was
okay.
And he got offered a job in Brooklyn, New York, when I was in high school. So in high school, we moved to New York. And so I finished high school in New York, which was also a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
You know, just to be able to see, you know, we went to the Apollo and saw all of those great shows that they had there, the Motown Review, and we saw Stevie Wonder and the Temptations and all these people. And we went to Broadway shows, which was, my dad used to always play Broadway soundtracks, the records, you know, but it wasn't until we moved to New York that I actually saw what a Broadway show was all about. He took me to see Pearlie, and that was the beginning of a love affair with Broadway for me. I mean, I just love the live theater and special musical theater. Yeah, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, so I grew up in Hampton, then moved to New York, and it was a eye-opening experience for me.
Wow, that is wonderful.
Because when I first got into radio, which was, as I said, in the late 70s, record companies ruled everything. That was the only way in. You had to get signed by a label. Independents did not really do that well. It was hard for them to make an impression, especially with the juggernaut of the major labels who had entire music departments, promotional departments, relationships with all of the radio stations. Some people say that some of those relationships were not legal relationships back in the pay for play days, you know. Though I think that they do have a whole different form of that exists right now that's very above board, you know, kind of a pay for play thing happening. But record companies really ruled everything. Now that the teeth has been taken out of record labels now, and I think technology has done that, because you can make a record in your house that sounds as good as some of the records that people would pay thousands and thousands of dollars for, to go into a studio and play for all the personnel and the engineer and the this and the that and the studio time especially. Very, very expensive. And the way the model worked originally, the record company, if they signed you, they would pay for all of that. They would pay for your touring. They would pay to promote you. In some instances, they would dress you and, you know, do the whole thing. But they take that money off the top before you start getting anything. Once you do start earning something, they're going to get theirs. A lot of artists who you think are doing very, very well are, you know, would be working for the label, essentially. The label would be the ones that would be benefiting, and what was left by the time the artist got their share would be very small. So I do think that one of the benefits in the decline of the record industry as we knew it back in the 70s and 80s is the fact that now you can have complete control over yourself. You don't have anybody telling you, make me a record that sounds just like that other one that was a hit. You don't have to do that. You can really lead with your heart. And I think that we hear that in the music. I think the music now is a lot more authentic, true to who the artists are. You don't have anybody over your shoulder telling you anything, but it also means that you have to take care of your own promotion, marketing, you know, planning your trips, your itineraries, and all of that. And plus still be a creator. You know, you've got to still write the music and play and all of that. It's a lot, but you do get to keep the money. When you sell your CDs out of the back of your trunk or at an event that you're at, it all goes to you. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think these days as an artist, you have to, you know, you have to be your own stylist, and you know, you have to be your own promoter. And
by the way, you do a good job of that. You look so great all the time.
Thank you.
The hair, the face, your wardrobe. You know, you got your little Althea Rene style. I kind of like.
Well, I do a storyboard where whatever I'm going to wear, I do a little video of it before and just a little video, and then you can look at it and you can see, oh, I think I need these kind of earrings, or I need these kind of shoes, and just kind of work backwards, you know.
Yeah, you've got a talent for that, though. Not everybody has that. Some people do need somebody else to come and say, help me.
Help.
What am I going to wear? How am I going to do what I'm going to do with my hair?
It is not easy, but when you got nobody else, you know.
That's right. It's on you. The buck stops here.
You got to do it. So do you have any advice for people, young, old, new, you know, if they're trying to get into having a career with recording and radio? You know, you have a lot of people will ask me, you know, hey, I want to get into having my record promoted, you know, what do I do?
Well, I do think that Sandy Shore is someone who has done a great job working with artists, and I love the model that she has created, where she'll work with you and provide some of those kinds of services, and then also provide a platform for your music as well. I would love to see other people like pick up that mantle. And I don't think she gets enough credit for what she has done to really, you know, move the needle especially for contemporary jazz artists.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Really, I think that is a good thing. But first of all, the thing is, you got to realize it's a profession. This is your craft. You have to be a professional about it. You want to be the best that you can be. The bottom line is your playing, you know, and writing. Because I think writing is an important part too. If you want to make some money in the music business, it's really great if you can create some music as well as play it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, I would look at promotion and marketing is very important. We do have the internet. Like I said, technology changed everything. You don't need somebody to do all that stuff for you now. You can go directly to the people who care about your message in the first place.
Okay.
You know, which is your mailing list is critically important. You want to always keep that up. Everywhere you go, you want to go where the love is. You know, people are already telling you, I like you. Then you want to make sure they know when you're coming to their town.
Yeah.
You want to make sure they know when your record is coming out. So you can go directly to feed your base, but then you want to also keep growing your base, which means I think collaborating with other artists is really important, because then you not only get exposure to your audience, you get exposure to their audience as well. And there's a lot of collaboration going on, particularly in jazz, because that's just the nature of what it is that we do. And then taking advantage of all of the other, you know, the festivals, the cruises, the on-land events. There are a lot of different unique opportunities that come up now. You know what I mean?
So is there are vocals frowned upon when they're like background vocals in smooth jazz songs? Is that something that is frowned upon?
Not by me. I don't ever frown upon vocals. I think vocals are great. I mean, I think there's some people who want pure instrumentals, but I don't know. You tell me. Is that more the artists that feel that way? Do the artists not want to share the scene with vocalists? Is that?
I think from my end, we've kind of been under the impression that you wouldn't play it if we had background vocals in an instrumental song. So
well, you know,
asking.
I don't know. I kind of like vocals personally. I mean, that's, you know, but I also like instrumentals. And I think, like you were talking about before, about having something that's commercially viable and then having something that maybe has a little bit of an edge on it, but really feeds you. And also people like me who want to hear
like maybe light, you know, maybe light vocals in there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's cool. But, you know, it's been such a long time since I was the decider, as they say, in those kind of things.
Yeah.
The situation I have right now at WBGO is just really perfect for me, though, right now at this point in my career.
And that's bringing me to the next question. What projects are you working on?
I am right now hosting a show called Favorite Things.
Okay.
on 88.3 WBGO in Newark, New Jersey, which serves the New York tri-state area. It is a legendary jazz station, and it is an NPR station, which
Okay.
means that it is member supported.
Okay.
Which also means there's not a whole lot of commercials, which is one of the major problems that people have with terrestrial radio, is the commercials. It's not like on TV, we can record things and fast forward through the commercials.
Right.
So we have to create new models, for music, for television, all of that really take into account the changes that technology has brought to us. But at WBGO, because it's an NPR station, I get a lot more freedom in terms of what I'm doing. WBGO is traditionally a straight ahead jazz station.
Okay.
And the program director, Steve Williams, he's actually the CEO of WBGO. But his vision is to do something that I've never really heard anybody do. And that is to play all of jazz. I mean, to play the straight ahead, but to also play the contemporary, and then some other things that you might call jazzy.
Oh.
There's some artists who I think it's really a sonic thing. It's about how it sounds. How do things, how does one song flow into the next? But if you listen to most straight ahead jazz stations, they act like there has been no new music since 1965. Yeah. You listen to most quote unquote smooth jazz stations. I prefer to say contemporary jazz. If you listen to most of them, they act like Kenny G invented jazz.
Yeah.
So to me, the challenge of being able to present something that is true to the history and the legacy of jazz music, but is also true to the diversity of it, and the fact that jazz has always been the experimental realm of music.
Yeah.
To me. It's where you could be free to do things differently, and I hear a lot of that in the new music that's coming out. And it's all over the place, but it's exciting. There's a lot that's really exciting that's happening in music. Every day I hear things that I love. I get introduced to new artists I haven't heard, or new projects from artists that I've loved for a long time. And so this has been a great opportunity for me. It's a great way for me to end my career, because I really retired almost 2 years ago from the wave.
But we won't let you. That's the thing.
But as my husband says, I didn't retire from working. I retired from having to work.
Right.
And so now if you see me working, it's because I'm doing something I really want to do.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing right now. And I just love that. But the show Favorite Things is actually a thematic show. So every day we have a different theme. Actually 2 themes now, because we're on for 4 hours. I was initially doing 2-hour programming blocks. But we might have a theme like the other day I did NEA Jazz Masters. Everybody who was on the show was someone who has been named an NEA Jazz Master. Okay. We do shows like I did a show called All the Way Live, that everything on it was a live recording. And then just tell the story behind where it was recorded and what was happening at that time, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then we do silly stuff too, like I had an apostrophe show, which was the titles of all the songs had an apostrophe in it. Like Walking, Moaning, Things Ain't What They Used to Be.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of fun with it, and it just gives shape to a way to present this incredible 7 to 8 decades of music that has been created.
Because the thing is, with music, each decade of music, and with artists, we're presenting the time that we've lived in. We're expressing the feelings of our struggles. So to go back and say we're going to be stuck in pure jazz of the 40s, those were those struggles. That's what you hear. So to say I'm going to play only that music, it's not your struggle. It's okay if that's what you want to play, but you're not going to play it better than they did.
That's right. And you're missing out on a lot if you're not paying attention to the roots of jazz. You're missing some great substantive work that is out there. And I know you are someone who I've seen actually pay tribute to what has come before you. Like when you did Dexter Wansell, when you did Life on Mars, I was like, go ahead, Althea.
That's one I've never heard anybody cover, because
it was amazing. I was so thrilled. You did something else too that I think came from like the 70s. That was really great. But yeah, it just shows your connection to the music. These are things you've heard that you can then reinvent. And that's what jazz does so beautifully. You think about that straight ahead jazz, how much of it was really covers of Broadway music.
Oh yeah.
How many of those jazz standards really just came?
Gershwin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All of that, Johnny Mercer and those guys.
The Gershwin song.
Yeah.
But how can people reach you?
You can listen to Favorite Things. Very easy to do. Just go to www.wbgo.org.
And we're gonna list all of that.
Yeah, and you can also just download the WBGO app, and you'll find not only my show but some other really great programming that they have, and the podcast platform is outstanding as well. There's a lot that's great on that radio station. I'm very, very proud to be affiliated with such a legendary, historic station, and I got to give a shout out to Dorthon Kirk, who was the wife of the late Rahsaan Roland Kirk. And Dorthon was one of the people who helped to start WBGO, and she is still around and still contributing, and actually has a podcast of her own called Bright Moments, which was the title of one of Rahsaan's most famous recordings.
A master.
Yeah, he's amazing.
And what you did on the Dave Koz cruise, it was just wonderful with the women, the women's panel. I will never forget that.
Yeah. We try to create great experiences that bring people together. And I think that's, those, I had a lot of fun with you on that cruise. I can't wait till we get to do that again.
I can't believe what you pulled out of us.
You get a bunch of women in a room and get them to start talking about themselves and their lives. It's something good always happens.
And yeah, because those are things for a lot of us, I'm sure, like nobody was able to get to us like that. And you were able to get so many women to open up and just, that was like very powerful. Thank you for that.
Hey, well, thank you for being a part of it. And thank you for all the great music that you've been making. I know you're working on something new. I cannot wait.
I am. I'm in such a creative mode right now. I really am. And I feel like I want to do, just stretch out and do different types of things. Coming from a classical background, I just want to do different types of things. So, yeah.
Well, we want to hear you in as many incarnations as we can. And I just hope that you're going to keep it up. Love Luther, your husband. You got a great partner in your work there. I think the sky's the limit for you, Miss Althea Rene.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm feeling very inspired these days.
That's good.
All right. Okay. So, Pat Prescott.
Althea Rene.